Dancing on graves at the burial mound of Grudsnick. Shots rang out from the grassy knoll, and it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald, it was searing doom from the skies. Have you heard of the High Elves? An Archmage and her Articuno compadre leading an Azure warhost in a battle on Loopy's Battle Balance mod, and they've got some cultivated mass to contend with. The Ogre Kingdoms have brought out the Pleistocene Parade, complete with woolly rhinos and the SNOWHORN of Mourn. Don't even know what animal to compare that monstrosity to. It's like if a mammoth and a short-faced bear had a gravel-eating baby. Please do let me know how you feel about the balance bar being obscured. I've been looking into the potential for modding it out completely. I don't want the rectangle up top to be too distracting, but I also think there are a lot of benefits on the viewer side for just not being able to see it. Keeps attention and suspense for longer. Archmage on her Great Eagle, Searing Doom, and Plague of Rust. Frostheart Phoenix provides a tanky flying alternative to the more aggressive Flame Spire and Arcane variants. The High Elves in this mod have an altered version of Martial Prowess, one that's been reined in a little bit more since this battle was fought, but the melee troops get speed, attack, and defense, and this means that the mounts of Ellyria are all substantially faster than they are in vanilla, which is a really good change, because that is quite literally what they are known for in the lore. It's also nice that ranged units get ranged buffs, while melee units get melee buffs, rather than the one-size-fits-all approach in the base game. But yeah, it's a cav rush, a lot of knights and light cavalry for the Azure, while the ogres are set up on the defense, 2 Noblar scrap launchers pulled by Rhinoxen, lots of meat shields and trappers to slow down the high elf mobility, ogre bulls with iron fists in support, and in the back line is the star of the show, in his dull mind anyway, the SNOWHORN of Mourn. Perhaps not the fiercest intellect, but that isn't much comfort to the broken and battered bodies of its victims. It can become essentially immune to missile fire at the cost of speed with its glacial defense ability. Really cool looking monster, and one well suited to taking on mounted knights and tightly packed infantry formations. Slaughtermaster Lord has Bone Crusher, Bull Gorger, and Troll Guts, fairly standard loadout and arguably the most competitive, while Scrag and Greases languish in their badness, and hidden in the trees all the way on the right flank, a unit of Rhinox Crushers. They are unironically the scariest monstrous cav in the setting, and will demolish just about any knightly regiment in a head-on fight. Not the unit that Silver Helms want to see. Will be interesting to see how the Azure try and handle that threat once it reveals itself. Now, as the battle commences, scrap launchers letting loose, they will be going after the Lothern Sea Guard and archers, who will wisely choose to spread out their formation, go into spaghetti line, and prevent themselves from being torn apart by the deluge incoming. Noblar scrap launchers on the flanks are going to be really good at warding off the cavalry. You typically don't want to charge into them with Silver Helms or Ellyrian Reavers, because disengaging will be so difficult, and then Ogre Bulls with their high weapon damage can come in and start smacking you around. But yeah, these scrap launchers are a really nice artillery piece, not too expensive, and of course, they double as a single entity monster, kind of like a chariot that can run in and bulldoze anything in their path. Not good melee defense, really not good melee stats at all, but still a useful unit in those late game situations. And as the Cav Rush makes contact here, the Knights of Illyria are going to get in, and Ogre Bulls will try to stop their aggression. The thing with these Cav Rushes that a lot of people don't realize is that some of them are going to have to take mediocre engagements to get things started. The only way to break down a battle line and start exposing those gaps and weaknesses is by getting up close and personal, which means at least a few of these Reavers and Silver Helms need to take what would traditionally be considered a dangerous frontal fight. High Elves massing on their left flank, looking to overload that side and start exposing these low armor Ogre Bulls to charges. Silver Helms pulling back, didn't take a tremendous amount of damage in that fight, it was just Noblars and a little bit of a charge from the Iron Fist Ogres, and they're moving up on the left side now, and this is why Trappers are such a good unit, particularly on the outer edges of a formation. They can be difficult to spot. Of course, they've got their knives, which do decent damage, and their traps will hamstring any mobile unit that tries to clear them out. They've got 160 models, so Bull Gorger will give them a lot of extra punch against those Elven Knights, and in the center, the SNOWHORN is warding off these opening feints, Articuno flying overhead and looking for the best place to land. Now this is where things get real interesting, because as soon as those Silver Helms are hit by that slow, the Rhinox Cav are coming in. Great engagement from the High Elves here. Frostheart Phoenix just terror-bombing a huge section of the Ogre line there. Everything just routed, but the Silver Helms are entirely exposed. Ambush is going to be executed to perfection. Big hammer and anvil. Silver Helms were pinned down, and even if they weren't, they would not have been able to escape here at all. Rhinox Crushers are going to bulldoze through them in seconds, And look at the size differential between them and Silver Helms. Just an entirely different weight class, about triple their size. It's like having Nate Robinson or Spud Webb try and box Shaq. It's not really a fair fight. And there are not one, but two Silver Helms stuck in that brawl now, which will lead to both pretty much evaporating on contact. So, blow and counter blow at the start. Awesome terror bomb with the Phoenix. Good chunk of the Ogre front line got torn up by that, but multiple Silver Helms getting dunked on when the Rhinox revealed themselves with that ambush. SNOWHORN of Mourn might be overextended a bit. Plague of Rust lowering its armor, so it will look to retreat back to the safety of the woods. Make sure it doesn't get shot up too bad. Silver Helms being cleaned up, and already Rhinox Cav are up to about 40 plus kills. So yeah, huge engagement for them and quite a way to announce their presence on this battlefield. High Elves are making headway elsewhere though. They are knee deep in engagement with a bunch of Nobblar trappers who are not throwing their knives, so positioning on those is probably somewhat poor. Could probably pull back one of those units and get some good volleys in instead. Searing Doom continues to make these artillery stop firing, and that's basically what it's been used for thus far. It's not going to be great on anything but really bunched up Ogre Bulls, so at the moment, it's being used kind of just as a way to zone out the Nobblar scrap launchers and prevent them from firing. And we've seen them get some really good volleys on top of the Ellyrian Reavers that were fighting that Nobblar blob. Ogre Bulls fighting spears without Nobblar support, generally not going to be a good idea, but the SNOWHORN of Mourn bring in the Glacial Ruckus, and it will be a problem for the High Elves. They do not have a tremendous amount of armor piercing. Articuno brings some of that, Great Eagle brings some of that, but they're mostly going to have to rely on Plague of Rust, and frankly, they're going to have to wait until late game to take that thing down, because a little bit of focus fire from Lothern Seaguard and High Elves will simply not be enough when it already has super high base armor, 20% innate missile resist, and can buff that even further with Glacial Defense. Bone Crusher taking some High Elf spears to Pound Town, quite literally, and Articuno has landed. Bull Gorger on the Crushers with great weapons, and this could be a nightmare situation for the Phoenix if it doesn't disengage right now. Huge flanking charge from the Stonehorn. That's one of the things that makes that unit so powerful, is it's able to continue that charge much like a Khemrian War Sphinx and kill 50, 60, 80 on a single good charge. That rampage will continue. But yeah, landing the Phoenix might not have been a great idea. They did have some support. There are a lot of Silver Helms and Ellyrian Reavers piling in, but the Phoenix got absolutely destroyed, and it's the only Phoenix that cannot be reborn in a fiery conflagration. And you can see Overcast Plague of Rust was cast in there too, minus 60 armor. It's a great way to deal with the Stonehorn and with the Rhinox Cavalry, but the burst damage from Bullgorger Rhinox Cav with all that AP and bonus versus large, it just shredded through what is supposed to be a relatively tanky aerial unit, and that thing is gone. The Phoenix is done. For the Azure there, the ideal situation would have probably been one or two more melee units in that fight, in that scrum at the same time, while the Lothern Seaguard and High Elf Archers are also shooting in. That would have provided enough focus fire, I think, to bring down the Rhinox really quick, with 3 Archer units firing in on a huge hitbox unit, missing 60 armor, also debuffed by the Phoenix. The problem is the Frostheart landed about 5 seconds too early there, and wasn't able to pull away through its own ranks of Cav, and that just led to it blowing up, essentially. SNOWHORN of Mourn now has a perfect opportunity to put its stamp of approval on this battlefield. It can still die, but the Azure are going to have to put a lot into it to bring that monstrosity down. It's at half HP, and heals could still be sent its way. Rhinox Cav, for the moment, is going to be still on the defensive, patrolling in the back line, clearing up the flanks, ensuring that they don't push through into the Nobblar scrap launchers. They're going to be able to clear up this side, but it may take some doing. Archmage is still safe right now too, dropping the Searing Dooms in the rear, continuing to harry and harass the artillery pieces. But the High Elves are starting to look a little bit thin here. They no longer want to be this spread out. They need to get their spearmen all together and in the fire arc of their archers, which are the only thing that can bring them back into this battle at this point. And at max range, with a Glacial Defense Stonehorn absorbing a lot of these shots and frankly dodging a lot of them with its mobility and those archers firing through trees, it's not an ideal firing solution for them. Nice dodge on the Bone Crusher, and none of those have really made any good contact at all. So well played on the positioning front there. But yeah, the archers need to move up past the tree line, get some good shots in, while the spearmen conglomerate and do whatever they can to slow down this Pleistocene parade, which is going to be brutal. I mean, when Rhinox Cavalry and the SNOWHORN of Mourn smash into a formation from both sides, it's gonna be a red ruin. There won't be a whole lot left after they're done with it. And this is why we signed up for the Ogre Kingdoms. This is why they're one of the coolest races in the trilogy. They can put on a monster show better than pretty much anybody. And that is a good example of it right there. SNOWHORN of Mourn charging in from behind. Rhinox Crushers absolutely blasting apart those High Elf spears from the front. And their chances of survival were pretty much zero after that one. Now there's not anything protecting the back line. The High Elf Archers and Lothern Sea Guard. I actually didn't realize that the High Elf Archers with armor got this visual upgrade. Maybe that's only a Loopy's Battle Balance thing. I'm not sure. I'd have to check vanilla. I don't remember them. Maybe it was when the Silvern Guard got their visual update as well. But now the Rhinox Crushers are basically free to do whatever they want in the rear. They're gonna get out their Tenderizes, big base weapon damage increase, and just as the battle ends, as the scrap launchers were about to land a 3-piece and a soda on the Lothern Sea Guard, it was army losses, and the Sharktooth tribe are gonna take the victory for this one. Really fun game. I think that was going to be a difficult fight for the High Elves, no matter what. They did not have a tremendous amount of armor piercing in this build, and in my opinion, the Frostheart Phoenix is just kind of underwhelming. Even in Loopy's Battle Balance, I don't know what buffs, if any, it's received, but it's going to have a real hard time dealing with the Stonehorn and with the Rhinox Crushers. The Crushers were amazing this game, as was the SNOWHORN of Mourn. Those two units by themselves pretty much carried this battle. The ambush was a big deal. I mean, taking off 2 Silverhelms immediately. Silverhelms are really what were needed against the Crushers, but it's difficult to handle them without a lot of other support. Plague of Rust being thrown in there, High Elf Spears, something to absorb the charge so that your expensive cavalry aren't just being run over immediately on impact. It was going to be difficult without a lot of investment on bringing those 2 units down, and with the Rhinox Crushers staying alive for as long as they did, they basically just got to impose their will. I think if you're building with the High Elves against the Ogres, you always have to fear the Monstrous Cavalry or the Stonehorn pick, because both are just really good tools against your Silverhelms, against your Ellyrian Reavers. I think the Frostheart has a use in supporting this kind of mobile cav rush, but ultimately I just don't think it had enough punch here, enough AP, enough combat prowess. A little bit more elite spears, maybe some halberds thrown in there, and potentially even the Pure Main Company in this mod, because they're white lines that have AP and bonus first large, I believe. That could have been a really good pick here to help bolster that front line and give them a little bit more punch when the Ogre Kingdom's big stuff came knocking. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you all in the next one.